Ooh, good morning. Exploring the car. Different morning video right now. Usually I do way different topic than this, but I thought it would be cool to do this live video real quick, and I could do more videos later on to elaborate a little bit more. Of course, most people when they hear about psychic abilities, they would just chalk this up as crazy talk. Well, I have it already in my ancestral history to have psychic abilities, and I had a near-death experience when I was younger that I think brought about a change to the way my brain acts. And I catch little spiritual signs, little spiritual omens, both good and bad. And if I lock on to that sign, I get a knowing about things. Now, before I go into Jorge Masvidal and Nathan Diaz or Nate Diaz, let me first talk a little bit about my experiences with martial arts. I'm 40. I'll be 42 years old in July, and I've been a martial artist for over 30 years, and including wrestling, Ishin Ryu karate, and over 20 years of Muay Thai. And you can add a little bit of jiu-jitsu to that. Although I am not a belted Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu player, I probably have the knowledge of a blue belt, but the mat time of a white belt, put it that way. And one of my good friends, Onishi Rodrigo, he is a well-decorated black belt of the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. He's now training in or teaching in Dubai, but he goes all over the world. And for a little while, I even helped out one of the Renzo Gracie classes in Middletown, New York, while he was teaching there. Now, in the late 90s, early 2000s, I competed in Muay Thai, and I went pro way too quick, and I actually got a really bad concussion, and my legs got really messed up, got contusions, like big softballs on my legs and thighs from having an exhibition with this Muay Thai fighter that was a lot littler than me at the time, but he was a savage. His name is Someday Ramba Someday M16, and I think now he used to train at Sit Or, a gym that I visited when I was taking a Muay Thai camp back in Pattaya back in the day. But now I think he has his own gym in Pattaya. But so I have a lot of experience and knowledge with Muay Thai fights, with kickboxing, with MMA. I just kind of got. I do still follow it. I just something about the way promoters are, and it's almost like you're a dog being owned in the fight, and they're giving you pennies. At least in boxing, the elite of boxing make a lot more money than people in the elite of MMA or Muay Thai. And I'm happy now that a lot of the elite of MMA are starting to make more money because they do risk their lives and their health, and they sacrifice so much to get in that ring or cage. And I have all the respect for men that do that. It's just that sometimes ego and pride get in the way, and you have to have a strong ego and have to have strong pride. But sometimes if you don't become aware of the reality of the situation, it can get you hurt. And I know Jorge Masvidal has amazing pride and amazing courage and ego, even so he probably will not admit the reality of what was transpiring in that fight. Now, I'm not sure if this is going to reach the MMA community because my fan base and the people that watch my videos, for the most part, are not in the UFC community, but we'll see. We'll see if this gets out there, and if people want to respond to it, that's fine. And to get to the point of it all is I did watch the Jorge Masvidal and Nate Diaz fight. In fact, I'm more interested in Muay Thai and kickboxing. Like, I'm a real big watcher of Glory kickboxing. Lion Fight's not really that popular anymore. I think they had some financial issues about not paying some fighters and things like that. But Absolute Muay Thai is on UFC Fight Pass, and they show some amazing matches. Not even in just the Lumpini and uh, the Rajadamnern stadiums, but they also do like the Blue Arena, other arenas that are not as popular as the Rajadamnern and the Lumpini, which are the main stadiums of Muay Thai. In fact, I'm planning on featuring one of them in my comic book. But let's get to the point of Jorge Masvidal and Nate Diaz. Now, you can't deny the control and the savageness of Jorge Masvidal during those first 3 rounds battling Nate Diaz. He completely dominated the fight. The body kicks were next level. The power of Jorge Masvidal, the angles, everything that he was doing to Nate Diaz was complete domination for the first 3 rounds. In fact, I think he let him off the hook a little bit in the first round. I think it was the first round. I think he probably could have finished the fight if he pressed it a little bit more. But from a psychic point of view, and we all have psychic abilities, as most people ignore them nowadays. When I saw Jorge Masvidal come back from the second round, I think it was, I saw, first of all, when Nate Diaz got cut, I saw his eye like hanging over here. I had like an inner knowing that the fight's going to be stopped. I just knew somehow, especially with the New York Commission, they don't let things go as far as like a Las Vegas Commission would let them go. They've had problems with New York stopping the fight too early before in other cases, and I just had a knowing that most likely this fight will get stopped if they don't push the pace more. And Nate, as a professional fighter who gets cut often, should have known and should have pushed the pace way more, knowing that there's a possibility the fight could get cut. But, you've heard Nate talk about how he felt like the fight was turning around. He felt the moment in the fight where he was on the ground and he looked up at Jorge Masvidal doing some ground and pound, and he felt a change in Jorge Masvidal, something within the eyes of Jorge Masvidal. I don't think he was lying there. I believe him 100%, and I'm not taking sides either way. I believe in both of these warriors. I support them both. I do not judge, especially when it comes to stepping into a cage or a ring, because most people don't understand the kind of pressure and the kind of man it takes to get in there and throw bones at someone else. Okay? Our human body is not meant for that. So there was a time, good morning everybody, there was a time in the fight when, I don't think it was the end of the second round or if the end of the third round, I'm not really sure again, but when Jorge Masvidal came back from the fight, came back between rounds, when he got off his stool, when he came back from his corner after the second round, I saw his face. I saw how pale he looked. And for a Latin American man, a Cuban man with a darker shade skin, he looked extremely white. He looked pale. He looked sick. And of course, because of the weight cut, because of all of his media obligations throughout the week, because of his newfound inflation of popularity, everything that was coming up to that fight, Jorge was different. His attitude changed because of his popularity. Nate Diaz's attitude has never changed because of his popularity. He stayed the same person the whole time, right? Jorge, he got a lot more cocky because of it all. He's been more boisterous about it all. He's been changing. His training probably suffered a little bit from it as well. I can only speculate on that, on how hard he trained for this, but he had more media obligations, and I'm not sure how this weight cut went for him, because when he came back from that or third round, and the round was about to begin, and he came back from his corner, when I saw how pale his face was, a knowing came over me that his body was starting to shut down. His body was starting to give. And I think Nate's intuitive. I mean, people misjudge Nate and Nate Diaz because, I mean, they do give horrible interviews, especially Nick. Especially now, Nick. But they might have a problem expressing themselves verbally, but they are highly intelligent when it comes to the fight game. and when it comes to reading other people. And I think their attitude reflects that. When they catch a sense of somebody judging them, they their attitude, puts a shell up, puts a wall up, and they get pissed off. I don't blame them. But Jorge is a different kind of beast than that. Nate tends to show his hands in some way, not in the fight game, not when in the middle of the fight, because he has a good poker face. But afterwards, he says that he tells the truth. Jorge would never tell somebody that his body was starting to give out. All right, that's a big sign of weakness. That's a sign of weakness in your cardio, sign of weakness in your weight cut, sign of weakness in your preparation for the fight. But I saw how pale his face was, and when I saw that, a psychic knowing came over me that this fight was going to start changing. All right, and Nate does come on stronger in the later rounds, and I do believe if the fight would have continued, that Jorge would have slowed down significantly. And I saw that his body, sometimes, even though you're mentally still there, your body is saying no. And I could tell how pale his face was, that his body was starting to say no. And you might think it's just cocky show playing, how after the fight, in the post-fight press conference, he was devouring pizza while he was talking, making like, hold on, I got to talk, making it look like he's a king on his throne, that he's got to eat first before people ask him questions. That was showmanship. He needed food in his body because his body was shutting down. And no one has brought that up in the fight MMA community at all, because maybe they didn't have that knowing come over them. Well, after several weeks of me seeing a couple videos about people talking about the fight, I decided to do this quick little video because I did have a knowing about this, and I did experience a sort of spiritual download of what was taking place. I mean, that is a spiritual war, not just a physical war. When you get in a cage with somebody, it is a spiritual battle. Do I think he's in danger to continue fighting? I think everybody is in danger to continue fighting. Anything can happen in a fight, and especially when you're bringing your body almost to the brink of death from weight cut. Your kidneys can shut down. Anything can shut down. It's really not healthy to lose 30 or 40 pounds in a 6 weeks period, sometimes in a 4-week period, sometimes even less. And then you're gaining 20, 30 pounds back in a 2-day period afterwards. It's a real brutal way of life to earn money. And finally, at least they're getting paid somewhat of what they should. Yeah, peace and love, brother, from the UK, no doubt. Now, I do psychic readings, I do spiritual clearings, I do spiritual readings, I sell crystals, and I have copper tensor tools as well. And all of this can play a good part in training for MMA, especially orgone pyramids, rejuvenating your body through spiritual energy, meditation. All of this helps highly. Look at Rickson Gracie. He is like a Mahatma sage, the way he does yoga and meditation. He was one of my idols growing up. Even though I come from a Muay Thai background, something pulled me to Rickson Gracie and some of the Gracie family. The ones that are more fully rounded, at least. Like Kron Gracie is a good example of what the Gracie should be now. One day, if Kron Gracie's striking gets a little bit more intense and he has a little bit more smarter way of approaching it, because he's like a bull. He just comes forward. I think in Kron Gracie's last fight, if he would have stuck less to the trying to prove himself striking, he would have done a lot better. But that's, I can't say what guys should have done, what they couldn't have done, because it's easy for me to say outside of the cage. But for someone that has competed before and felt the wrath of ego, I started to get some skills. I had a good low kick. I had pretty good boxing, and I thought it was good enough for me to go pro. And the thing is, once you go pro, you can't go back to amateur. So I had gone pro way too soon, and I cost dearly for it. I got head trauma from it. I got concussion from it, and I barely got paid for the fight. So at the time, I stopped training pretty much a couple of years ago. Pretty much, I sometimes I'll get to hit the bag or hit the gloves or something, but I stopped training pretty much. But I still have a high interest in kickboxing and Muay Thai. and MMA in some capacity. Just the UFC, I feel, has gotten too out of hand. Um, yeah, no, I did, yep. And in fact, the one really elite fighter that I had two pro Muay Thai fights, and several amateur fights before. I was 1-1 in pro Muay Thai. The first fight, I was kind of someone that is kind of like, I guess, Shogun Hua in a way. It's either kill or be killed. You just go for it. And I did actually get to train with the Shoot the Box team. I took several seminars from Murillo and Maurizio Hua, which is Shogun and Ninja. I got to meet Oswerio Silva, uh, Cyborg Santos. Who else did I meet out of them? Of course, Rafael Cordero. Uh, who was Cristiano Marcelo? So I got to meet a lot of them back in the late 90s, early 2000s. And I did get exposed to a lot of savagery in the community. And I know what takes place for a weight cut. And I saw it in Jorge Masvidal. And I felt it when he was downing pizza in the post-fight press conference. His body was starting to shut down. And I do feel there would have been a big turnaround for Nate Diaz in the final round. I don't know if he would have been able to pull it off, but he might have been able to win those last couple rounds. I know he severely lost the first 3 rounds, and if the fight was a 3-round fight, he got dominated. But I do think his stamina was better than Jorge's, and his health. And thank you guys for joining me. And Spiral out.